Blake Belladonna is the bee in RWBY, the third main character that we were introduced to back in 2013. In spite of that, Blake is arguably the worst handled character of the main four. Even back at the start of the show, her entire arc often felt like more of a side plot or background detail than anything, and it's no secret that said arc has been pretty much totally dropped post Volume 5. Blake is a Faunus, a race of half-animal individuals inhabiting the world of Remnant. And I use half rather generously because most Faunus take the utterly lazy character design route of regular person with one animal feature stapled onto their body, but that's a whole other discussion. The point is that the Faunus are very clearly meant to be an allegory for prejudice. They are a minority that is often looked down upon by Remnant at large, viewed by many as something inhuman. At best, they are bullied for being different, and at worst, they are literally enslaved or killed for it. It's a heavy topic, to be sure, and one that sits at the center of Blake's entire character arc. Allegedly. Her trailer song, From Shadows, is all about the plight of the Faunus race. This is somewhat interesting, as while the other trailer songs are more or less meant to represent the starring characters, Blake's is all about the Faunus as a collective. Born with no life into subjugation, treated like a worthless animal, stripped of all rights, just to let you be crushed by cruel, ruthless human rule. Blake's main goal is to help her people fight for their right to coexist alongside humans, even going so far as to join the White Fang to do so. However, when the White Fang's methods become more and more extreme, well, we see her response clearly enough in the Black trailer. While Blake may be willing to engage in minor acts of terrorism like property damage and theft, she draws the line at killing innocent people, something her mentor and maybe former love interest Adam had no qualms in doing. The Black trailer ends with Blake cutting ties with Adam and the White Fang, quite literally, and setting out to fight for the Faunus in her own way. Kind of. The method she settles on for doing this is becoming a huntress and fighting the creatures of Grimm. Okay, I mean, I guess I could understand the logic here if Blake's goal was to try and demonstrate the Faunus can be heroes as well, but she actively hides the fact that she's a Faunus from everyone around here. But we'll get back to that later. Also, a bit of a side tangent, but I've never exactly understood how her bow is meant to hide her ears. Does it just, constantly press them down into her hair? Wouldn't that get uncomfortable after a while? Well, whatever, I suppose. The point is that, unlike the other heroines, Blake doesn't really have much of a solid reason to be a beacon until the White Fang come in to serve as an antagonist for the first several volumes. Now, the White Fang are a whole talking point unto themselves, but they do kind of fall into the same trap that a lot of extremist villains fall into. They do have a valid goal to fight for, but their methods ultimately cause more harm than good. The issue is that the protagonists don't really offer much of a counterpoint to that stance. At best, the heroes wind up fighting to retain the status quo that caused the villains to take action in the first place. Of the four main heroines, Blake is the only one who's really established to actually care about the plight of the Faunus, but she's never really shown to be doing much to help that plight for the first 3 volumes beyond just fighting the terrorists, I guess. And speaking of things never being shown, RWBY as a whole really doesn't actually do all that much to properly establish the Faunus are treated that differently from regular people. Yeah, we get hints of it here and there, but beyond the slave labor utilized by the Schnee Dust Company, it's all mostly lip service at the end of the day. We barely even get to see the aforementioned slave labor, though I imagine that was likely due to Rooster Teeth not being wholly comfortable with portraying such a thing in the show. Moving the topic back to Blake, though, the whole Faunus inequality thing really does just kind of fall completely by the wayside after Volume 5. She helps to reestablish a new White Fang that comes to quote-unquote assist in the big final battle in Mistral. And after that, her arc pretty much concludes with Adam's demise in Volume 6. Following that, Blake doesn't really have any sort of arc beyond just being Ying's girlfriend, I guess. Okay, so I know a fair few people probably got angry about that, so I'm just gonna say it. I don't hate Bumblebee. The debate over whether Blake should have been with Yang, Sun, Ilya, or anyone else has raged for years, and I am not going to delve into all that shipping drama. What I will say is that Bumblebee's actual execution in the show feels extremely underwhelming and half-baked. Like, the writers had to literally make the universe itself force the two to kiss in Volume 9 because of a contrived magical storm or whatever. I don't think it could feel more forced if you tried. Which is a shame because I do think there was genuine potential there. You might have noticed at this point that we've gone off on a fair few tangents, talking about other issues surrounding Blake's character rather than Blake herself. And, well, that's kind of because Blake doesn't really have much of an actual character to analyze. It never really feels like she has much of a clear-cut goal beyond fighting the White Fang whenever they happen to crop up. And once they stop being an issue, Blake stops having any real purpose in the show. She's kind of just along for the ride once she learns about all the Salem nonsense. And like, I get that her thing is that she's supposed to be no longer running away, but it doesn't feel like she's actively pursuing anything either. In Volume 2, the girls all talk about their reasons for wanting to become huntresses. Ruby wants to be a hero like her mother. Weiss wants to reclaim her family name from a tyrant. Yang wants to, well, Yang's motivation kind of bounces all over the place, but that's a topic for a different video. Blake, however, admits to not really having a goal or a plan. She really just joined Beacon because she wanted to do some good for the world, even though Blake isn't really sure what that entails. She's kind of just going wherever the plot demands her, which is definitely not a great look for one of the four protagonists of the show. Like, it would be one thing if she's just trying to find her place in the world, wandering aimlessly until she finds a cause that she can really get invested in. But if that's the case, joining Beacon feels like a little bit of a leap to me. Especially because, again, her whole thing was supposed to be fighting for Faunus equality until she left Adam behind on the train. I guess leaving the White Fang also meant she had to leave behind her entire driving motivation and seek a new one at the Academy. Again, it really does just loop back around to the Faunus as a whole being rather poorly executed in the world at large. Even beyond that, though, I think there's a lot of wasted potential for Blake as a fairy tale illusion. Like, she's supposed to be Belle from Beauty and the Beast, with Adam being the Beast. I know I brought this up in a previous video, but I think that rather than the Faunus being a species, it would have been way more interesting if they were like people suffering from some kind of ancient curse or whatever. Those afflicted would develop animal-like traits and over time would slowly become more and more feral, potentially even turning into grim unless they found a way to keep the curse in check. Blake could be searching for a means to end the Faunus curse, which I feel would tie rather nicely into all the ancient magic nonsense that Salem and Ozpen get up to. I think this route could also add some interesting nuance in how she approaches fighting Grimm, knowing they used to be people like her. Moreover, I feel like this could tie very nicely into the aforementioned fairy tale parallels. Again, Blake is supposed to be Belle from Beauty and the Beast, so wouldn't it be appropriate for her to be the one that breaks the curse, turning people into monsters? Really, of the four main heroines, Blake frankly has the least in common with her fairy tale inspirations. But now we're delving into rewrite territory, and there are so many ways that you could have approached her character. So, what do you all think? How do you believe that Blake's character arc should have been handled? Do you think the premise is fine as is, or would she have benefited from a total reimagining? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and until next time, stay bright.